So say a prayer for Sam Harris. He started to really lose touch with reality. He seemed to be claiming that Joe Rogan thought COVID was no big deal, when in fact the press came after him for the drugs he took in the process of treating it immediately. Joe Rogan didn't think COVID wasn't a big deal. He immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. He had private doctors and they gave him every treatment possible. And he beat it. He was COVID free in 48 hours.
You saw how green he looked in that video on CNN.
So Sam Harris, this bothers him that people were allowed to question the COVID narrative, and those people who questioned it were right.
The Ayatollah Harris is finally speaking out.
The Ayatollah Harris. So listen to what he has to say. So this is what he said before. So now he said I don't know which one I should play first. So I want to play this one for you first, and then I'll give you the update on what he has said most recently.
Yes.
I meditate to this.
Take it back to COVID for a second. In one way, we got very lucky that COVID wasn't worse than it was, right? You know, it could have been much, much worse.
Yeah, Fauci could have designed it to be even more deadly, I guess. The government that you want to trust.
Could we have been locked down longer for no reason?
Right?
It would have been 10 times as deadly or 50 times as deadly, and we would have lived through, or many of us wouldn't have lived through something truly awful. But
so he's admitting that. So I'll just keep playing.
Hey, Iraq never had weapons of mass destruction, sure,
but they could have, and that would have been truly awful.
But I still stand by nuke them first.
Yeah,
COVID been worse, just enough worse to really get our attention, to really be undeniable. We would have had a different political conversation around.
You think it didn't get our attention? Do you think COVID didn't get our attention? To really get our attention.
So if a different thing happened, we'd have a different conversation than the one we have about the thing that happened.
That's right.
This is what makes a big
That's what makes a big brain. Smart. He's got a big brain.
There wouldn't have been the same kind of vaccine skepticism. Bret Weinstein would not have been releasing 80 straight podcasts on the dangers of the vaccine if a few variables were changed. I mean, just take that.
Like there wasn't all lies. That variable.
Like they were all but the things were changed. They were like they were. So it made sense that Bret Weinstein did 80 straight podcasts about the COVID narrative and pushing back against it. It was really important that he did that, in fact, because we were being ubiquitously lied to us by corporate media, and people were being censored who were telling the truth and asking the right questions, like Bret Weinstein was.
If it was
this is amazing, right?
If it was different and I had been right, then Bret would have been wrong. Thank you, Sam.
COVID exactly as it is, but just make it preferentially dangerous to children rather than to old people. Right? You just flip that around, the variable of age. If kids were dying by the hundreds of thousands from COVID at a rate of whatever it was, 1%, say, but if it was pretty much all kids, we would have had a very different experience, right? And
does he wish it was that?
It sounds like it.
Like it could. I'm not clear if he's for or against this.
So this is what Bret Weinstein said of him saying that. Sam Harris makes two bad assumptions. Our institutions function, and we all work from the same information set. Captured institutions deliver unreliable information, including outright lies. Sorting signal from noise is the skill that separates us. COVID is our wake-up call. And I said, yeah, if the vaccine actually worked the way they said it did, and if COVID-19 was way deadlier than it turned out to be, and if it wasn't benign to children but killed lots of kids instead, then we could have shut people up who disagree with me a lot easier.
That's what he's saying. He's sad about the lack of trust in the institutions just because they
lied to us and they were wrong about everything had to do with COVID.
Yes, Sam, if they hadn't lied, I would trust them more.
So now here comes Sam still saying it's even worse now. Watch this.
I think the thing that got into my head is someone sent me a clip from Joe Rogan's podcast where he and Joe were talking about me, and Jordan seemed to be talking about me as like a cautionary tale, like, look what can happen to somebody. And
yes.
Joe said something like, oh, I still have hope for Sam. And they're, in my view, they are in this contrarian echo chamber.
And they happen to get everything right. but they're in an act. They're just big. So this is
Sam's in a more exclusive, higher class echo chamber, and that's all that it is.
So what Sam is saying is they got COVID right just because they're reflexive contrarians. I got it wrong because I'm smart and I looked at data. That's what he's going to say. I bet you.
You would think it would be like, well, I was wrong about that, and like whatever. No, it's all about how right or wrong he was.
It's all about how the people who were right were wrong.
Well, I guess
right where mRNA vaccines are terrifying. COVID was no big deal. January 6th was maybe a non-event. Right, the libtards are trying to ruin everything. And there's a whole picture of sort of audience capture and information skewing there, which I understand. I mean, that's sort of like if I look to my left, I can see all that. But if you're only there,
he sounds like Kamala Harris. I don't know what the fuck he's saying. He sounds like Kamala Harris. He's just talking. He's just saying things now. I don't even know what those things mean, but they don't mean anything.
There's just a lot of half-truths kind of ricocheting around that echo chamber, which...
What
about, you mean, as opposed to all the truths that were ricocheting around the Fauci,
as opposed
Collins?
to all the no-truths?
What?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk to both those guys, but it's just they're not...
No, you're not. No, you won't, you liar. You're a coward.
In the lane I'm in and trying to maintain, despite the crosswinds, I'm trying to maintain a straight course in.
Oh my God! So that's
only half the story.
Do you know what that is?
Right?
That's his meditation empire. Is the lane he's in. I just think people
are genuinely confused now because two things are true. We have lost trust in the normal channels of information and normal institutions post-COVID, during COVID and post-COVID. For obvious reasons, but we desperately need institutions and a media that we can trust.
So can we just officially retire Sam Harris as being any kind of public intellectual? Because he's not. He is a dumb guy who's read a lot of books. That's what it looks like. Because I'm smarter than him without ever reading as many books as him.
I don't think being intelligent and having zero sense of irony are necessarily the same.
He doesn't. He suffers from a narcissistic personality disorder, which doesn't allow him to see when he's wrong. Dude. And so this is what it looks like. And so I'm actually way smarter than Sam when it comes to something like that, because I know I'm dumb, and I'm always trying to figure out where I get it wrong, because I don't like to be exposed for being as dumb as I am. And so he thinks he's right. He's never afraid he's wrong. And that's why he sounds like this all the time.
Sounds afraid he's wrong in the hedging language, I feel like, a little bit.
Well, he's doing propaganda. He's doing public relations.
Okay, so
he has to frame Joe Rogan and people who were right about COVID as being in some kind of echo chamber.
Because
where they just go libtards this and that.
Right. He's talking about audience capture.
Yeah.
It's a projection thing.
It's a projection thing,
he
exactly.
makes a ton of money off of atheist meditation
tapes.
That's
right.
And the kind of dingbat Democrats that go for that
that's right.
are not going to stand for him just blurting the truth out to them.
Just like Jon Stewart wasn't allowed to talk about the virus coming from a Wuhan lab.
Pussy. That's exactly
Sam
right.
Harris is not allowed to tell the truth about COVID either.
Yeah.
He's actually the guy whose audience captured, meaning he can't go against his audience because they'll leave him. And he can't tell them the truth like Jon Stewart can't tell his audience the truth about COVID or the vaccines or Ukraine. Just like that. That's who Sam Harris is. And then, of course, he projects that onto the people who get everything right.
Surely everyone thinks like me, Sam Harris, the smartest man in the world.
So Bret Weinstein responds to Sam. He says, Sam Harris seems willing to talk to everyone but me about this, which reveals the shallowness of his excuse. He's like, I'd be willing to talk to them. No, you're not. You weren't willing to talk to a dummy like me, Sam Harris.
He's not dumb. He's smart because he knows his money, the crowd paying him, ain't going to stand for it.
Yeah.
I've heard people accuse you of that, but the bottom line is I've seen you fucking just look at the thing, and if people get mad about it...
I go against my audience whenever...
Kyle Rittenhouse is a big one.
Whenever a big thing comes along, I end up going against a big portion of my audience. For instance, When I told people not to vote for Hillary Clinton, and they said, oh my God. So that was a big one. The second thing is when I told people the truth about Bernie Sanders, that he was actually a fraud, and that lost me. That was a big one to go against Bernie Sanders. And then when I exposed the squad, that was another big one. And then when I told the truth about Russiagate, that was another big going against then I told the truth about Syria, and then I told the truth about Ukraine and now COVID. Oh my God, did I lose people over COVID? I lost most of my friends. Are you kidding me? So this idea that somehow I'm audience captured is the exact opposite. That's who's audience captured. I'm constantly I'm having heterodox opinions.
He goes, we need institutions we can trust. But what he's really saying is we need to trust our institutions. And by institution, he means like all the people, all friends that probably know the facts you're saying are right. The larger thing is you're supposed to vaguely fear Trump winning.
Yes,
and so it's like, well, whose team are you on? Because if we were wrong about these last
it's all
30
tribal
things.
So when so he is tribal. Sam Harris reveals tribal thinking, and then he projects it on his political.
The Taliban's more cosmopolitan than him.
That's right. So Bret also says Sam Harris's refusal of further boosters. So Sam's not taking the boosters anymore.
What?
Means he has conceded. That's exactly what it means. So if you wanted to criticize someone like me or Bret on our COVID takes and our takes on the vaccine, and you stopped taking the boosters, then you're a hypocrite. And you came around to the same thinking that we came around to a lot earlier, because you're no longer listening to the advice from the FDA or the CDC or Fauci or Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper. You're not listening to the official advice anymore, because the official advice is to keep getting your fucking boosters.
And wear a mask, I think, too.
That he won't admit that he has conceded is an indication of another type of failure altogether. So if you're not taking your boosters, that means that at some point you stopped believing what they were telling you about COVID.
Wait, have people stopped taking their boosters?
Yes. Nobody's taking the boosters.
You have 3. You got to get this season alone.
Nobody's taking the boosters, which means that everybody who criticized me has finally, 3 years later, come around to my point of view and are not trusting what they're being told by their healthcare professionals, the medical establishment, Dr. Fauci, and the talking heads on TV, that they've stopped listening to them.
What?
Isn't that just like me?
What did they say? Hey, look, I took 4 or 5 for the team, but this one's for me.
I wonder if people I debated over mandated vaccines, I wonder if those people have stopped getting their boosters. And if so, why? So now you're allowed to think for yourself, but 2 years ago you weren't allowed to think for yourself.
You lose protection over months, and there's a new strain coming out.
In the lane I'm in, remember he said that? Sam Harris.
The atheist meditation empire. He's talking about
atheist meditation. Yeah. So, but he wants you to think the lane I'm in is the serious, sober, thought out, thoughtful, scientisty, smart person, intellectual lane. That's what he wants you to think. No, he's in what Kurt says.
Yeah.
He's in, what is he? How do you say it?
Oh, his atheist meditation. That's his big moneymaker.
Yes.
Is that?
I'm in the lane I'm in. Which lane is that, Sam? The I'm smarter than you lane? You can't possibly have been right and I was wrong lane? Gross. I think he's in the mRNA at all cost. It is too big to fail lane. By the way, he looks like he's aged a ton. That's not nice.
I was thinking that too, though. I was
actually thinking the same thing when I was watching that.
That's weird.
But no one's aged more than me. So
you better get another booster. It's probably.
So wait. Oh, so he just skips the part where we build the new ones and moves on to the part where we have to trust the ones we have. What that means is he skips the part where we have to build new institutions, and he just jumps right to the part where we have to trust the old ones. The institutions, meaning the FDA, meaning the CDC, meaning the NIH, those kind of institutions, and our media institutions.
How does he make that much money and still have no balls? Yeah, like how many millions would you need to be like, I have a set of balls finally?
He sees it as an own on Trump. If he concedes on COVID, that means he's given into MAGA, and he can't do that. So wait, the media and institutions lost trust for obvious reasons. How has he done that 180 without admitting his part in this?
Oh,
So that's right.
Let's tell him Trump was responsible for Project Warp Speed, and maybe it'll
Yeah. So he was part of that. He was part of the media and institutions that lost trust for obvious reasons. Sam, you were part of that.
Are you the obvious reason?
Anyway, Sam Harris, the dumbest fucking smart guy in the world.
Everybody that was like, I would say the whole, Bill Maher panel of intelligentsia that you would see pop up, they're all like, feel like they're like pals, and it's like a cool it's like the host of Saturday Night Live 5 times club.
Yeah, yeah.
He feels like a part of that.
Yeah,
and
he does.
And same as Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes, you're right. And Sam Harris, he does that thing that super arrogant narcissists do. Who they want you to think they're smart. They talk really soft.
I know.
And so he just talks really soft, and then that makes him sound smart.
Sounds like how a crazy psychiatrist talks when they feed you your own leg that they made. Are you enjoying it, or have I lost trust with?
So if you say bullshit about, if you say masks stop the spread, and if you say mandates are good and lockdowns will stop, if you say that in a soft voice, it's still wrong.
We may have to do a preemptive nuclear strike.
We might have to do. We might have to do a preemptive nuclear strike.
Rational.
Just say it
nuclear
in
weapons.
A soft voice. It sounds smart.
Because it would be very dangerous if they had those weapons.
It would be very dangerous.
We're the only country that's ever used them in the history of all mankind, and we invented them. But if anybody else got them, that would be a disaster.
There has never been a bigger, public. I think going from being heralded as a smart guy to nobody listens to this guy anymore.
He got a lot of money. Look, the money's the big corrupter of everything.
Is that it?
When you get that much money and you're in with people making that much money, and like I said, I don't get the part where you're like, oh, I would want to be able to say whatever the hell I want because I'm rich.
That's what money is supposed to give you. Like Joe Rogan has the freedom to say shit. Anyway, come see our live shows. We're going to be in Chicago, Rosemont, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Toronto, Toledo, Detroit, St. Louis, and more. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.